Red pill or blue pill? Probably the most iconic choice in movie history, right?
Yeah.
From The Matrix.
Definitely. Neo's big moment.
But what if that choice? What if it wasn't just about escaping machines? What if it was really about escaping
is the moment.
Well, our everyday perception of reality?
Or maybe understanding that what we see as solid reality is maybe just one layer, part of something much bigger.
Exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive into this really fascinating interpretation of The Matrix. The idea that the film isn't only great sci-fi, but maybe a powerful allegory for consciousness, illusion, even accessing non-physical realities, astral planes.
Yeah, we've looked at sources pushing this specific reading, and they argue pretty convincingly, I think, that the film's elements map onto concepts from spiritual traditions and especially astral projection ideas. It's surprisingly detailed.
Right. So that's our mission to this deep dive. Let's unpack this interpretation. We want to see the connections they're drawing between the movie and these concepts of consciousness of other realms.
And maybe explore what this whole perspective suggests about, well, our own reality.
Okay, let's jump in. The core of the allegory. It has to start with the Matrix simulation itself, right?
Right. And according to these sources, it's not just, a computer program run by machines.
It represents our mundane reality, the physical world we touch and see.
Pretty much. The world of the five senses. It's that consensus reality we're all born into. Seems totally solid, governed by physical laws, gravity, time, all that. Feels absolute.
And that absolute feeling, that's crucial, isn't it? It connects to ideas like Maya or illusion in some traditions.
Exactly. It's not saying the world isn't real, but maybe our perception is limited. Like the Matrix simulation, it's a convincing construct hiding something maybe vaster.
Okay, so if the Matrix is our everyday reality construct, what about the people in the pods? The physical bodies just lying there.
Well, in this reading, those bodies, they're us, our physical forms.
Seen as kind of asleep or passive when our consciousness isn't focused here, like when we're dreaming or meditating deeply.
Or supposedly during conscious astral projection, yeah. The body is the anchor, the hardware consciousness uses for this physical plane.
Right, the anchor. Okay, so if that's the physical hardware, what about Neo inside the Matrix? His avatar, his residual self-image.
That is seen as the parallel to the astral body, or subtle body, some call it.
Go ahead.
It's basically the vehicle, the form your consciousness uses when it's operating on those non-physical or astral levels.
Which makes sense, like you said, because it often looks like the physical body, just like Neo's RSI.
Yeah.
But more fluid, more thought responsive.
Exactly. Like how things shift in dreams based on what you think or feel. It's supposed to be much more malleable.
Okay, now the really big one. The choice. Right. Red pill, blue pill. Jacking in, jacking out.
Yeah, the absolute core. So being jacked in, that's like being fully identified with physical reality, just completely unaware there's anything else.
Or maybe even unconscious astral states, like regular dreaming.
That's part of the interpretation too, yeah. Your consciousness is somewhere else, sort of astral-like, but you don't realize it. No control.
Right, and then taking the red pill.
Yeah.
Jacking out. That's the awakening moment in the allegory.
It's the conscious choice, choosing to look beyond the veil to actually explore other states. It's seen as a direct parallel to deciding to consciously astral project.
Choosing to shift your awareness. And what about that really jarring place Neo wakes up in? The desert of the real.
That's thought to symbolize the shock, the disorientation when you first see beyond the comfortable illusion you've always accepted. It can be stark.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what about the real world then?
Yeah.
Zion, the ships. What do they represent?
Okay, this is key in the interpretation. It's not really another physical place.
Oh, right.
It's more like a state of being or a different plane of consciousness, one that's perceived as freer or more real than the Matrix illusion.
So it's where the awake people operate from, seeing the Matrix for what it is.
Exactly, maybe a higher vibrational astral level or just a state of more lucid, expanded awareness.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk characters. They have big symbolic roles here too, right? Starting with Morpheus.
Morpheus is pretty clearly the spiritual guide figure, the guru, maybe even the higher self.
The one offering the choice.
Yeah, offering the choice, the wisdom, the guidance you need to navigate this bigger reality.
Okay. And the agents. always trying to maintain the system, stop Neo.
The agents are fascinating. The sources see them as symbols of limiting forces. So things like fear, limiting beliefs, the ego.
Internal stuff.
Internal stuff, definitely. Your own doubts and resistance. But also potentially external things like societal conditioning, dogma. And some sources even mention them representing lower astral entities like negative thought forms or energies that try to keep consciousness limited.
Wow, okay. So internal and external blocks. And then Neo, the one.
Neo is the potential, right?
Yeah.
He represents the adept astral projector, or maybe just the enlightened individual. The potential within everyone to master their own consciousness.
To see beyond the physical senses.
Yeah, his whole journey is about realizing that power, learning to see the underlying structure, the code, and understanding that consciousness can interact with it.
Which brings us to his powers. Stopping bullets, flying, phasing through walls. How does that fit the allegory?
Well, they're seen as direct parallels to reported astral abilities. Once Neo gets that the Matrix is a mental construct.
He could bend the rules with his mind.
Exactly. And flight. That's like the classic reported experience in astral travel, almost universal.
Right, you hear that all the time.
And things like telekinesis or making things appear. It mirrors the idea that thought and intention have a much more immediate, direct effect in astral environments.
Makes sense. And phasing through things.
That just reflects the idea that the astral body isn't bound by physical density, it's non-physical.
And the spoon. There is no spoon.
That's kind of the ultimate point, isn't it? The realization that limitations within the simulation, or maybe even in our reality, are fundamentally mental constructs. The spoon only seems solid because you believe it is in that context.
Mind over matter, quite literally in that framework.
Pretty much.
Okay, what about other figures? Like the oracle or the architect?
They seem to represent access to higher consciousness, maybe the universal mind, or something like the Akashic Records' vast pools of information.
So they offer glimpses of the bigger picture, your place in it all.
Insights into the system, yeah. Your path, your potential.
Even little things like deja vu, that glitch in the Matrix moment.
Even that gets interpreted. It's seen as maybe a thinning of the veil between realities, or like a synchronicity poking through.
A little crack in the simulation.
Yeah, a glimpse of the underlying code or interconnectedness showing itself for a second.
Okay, wow. So let's step back then. If we connect all these pieces,
Right.
what's the big takeaway from reading the film this way? It's more than just neat parallels, right?
I think the core idea is that the Matrix, through this lens, becomes this really profound map. A map of spiritual awakening, basically.
Using sci-fi to describe realizing our reality might be limited.
Exactly. The Matrix simulation represents that limited construct we perceive. Our bodies are the anchors, often asleep to other possibilities.
And the residual self-image is like our potential vehicle for exploring beyond that. The astral body.
Right. And the pivotal moment is the choice, the red pill, which is like choosing conscious exploration, choosing astral projection or spiritual awakening, even if it's disorienting at first.
And the journey is about overcoming those agents' fear, doubt, limitations.
Guided by wisdom, like Morpheus, or our own inner knowing.
Until you reach that Neo stage, realizing the power of consciousness itself. That it's not actually bound by the rules of the simulation.
Yeah, that consciousness can perceive and interact with reality differently. His powers become symbolic of mastering those different states.
So the film's message, seen this way, isn't really about fighting robots at all.
Not primarily, no. It's more of a personal, allegorical call. A call to wake up from the shared dream, you know, and realize the potential within our own consciousness.
It definitely gives a movie a whole different layer. A very potent one.
It really does.
So here's the thought to leave you with. If this interpretation resonates at all, if our everyday world is something like the Matrix simulation, maybe a convincing but ultimately limited construct, what does that imply about your freedom?
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Are you capable, like Neo learns to be, of seeing the patterns beneath the surface? And maybe, just maybe, bending the rules of your own perceived reality?